Hey, what's up, guys? This is Justin with the Twinjitsu podcast. We have
Chris,
and we got a little twin sandwich going on. We have our first guest, Dr.Joe. Should we call you Dr.Joe the whole time, or is Joe okay?
Joe is just fine.
Okay.
I don't know how the Dr. Joe gets started, man. I don't know how it gets started. I don't start that shit, and all of a sudden it's like...
I think it's a respect thing, especially in jiu-jitsu. Like, if someone has a black belt, we call him professor. If you're a doctor, we call you doctor. You've earned it.
But in the hospital, do people even call you Dr. Joe, or is it by your last name?
So it depends. It depends on the situation. Like, nurses will say doctor. And I typically will... I mean, I try to tell them, like...
Bitch, it's Joe.
Yeah, that would go over great. So I'd be working as a greeter at Walmart.
Yeah.
And I usually, hey, I'm Joe outside the room. It's nice in the room and it depends on the patient. Like if it's an older patient, I'll be like, hey, I'm Dr. Joe. If I feel that the interaction needs a little bit more formality, you kind of just feel it out the moment that you go in. Yeah. Oh yeah, it is. It's that thing that you don't learn in medical school. And it's really that art of medicine of how am I going to get the best interaction out of here? And you're making a judgment. Sometimes you're right and sometimes you're wrong. But I usually say, if you have any questions, Dr. Spinell, write my name up. And if they have a hard time with it, I'm like, just remember Dr. Joe, ask for Dr. Joe. But yeah, that's in the hospital. Outside of that.
Yeah, dude, good luck telling Jack. He will call you Dr. Joe until the very... He'll be like, hey, Dr. Joe, what do you think about Cody striking tonight?
Yeah. I know. He's just such a respectful guy, dude. He's I don't know. He's a really cool guy.
Well, Jack gave me a tip on the podcast that when we say someone's name, we should kind of get a backstory. So I'll say Jack is a brown belt at our gym, and he's a gentle giant, I would say.
Dude, he's a what I just say is a very kind person.
Yeah.
That dude, he's just a good guy, man.
Yeah. He's the strongest man alive, though. Yeah. I don't think I've trained with anyone as strong as Jack is.
No.
That's for sure. So, do you want to talk about you don't have to talk too much about like your job and where you work, but what is your position? I mean, do you not want to or no?
Oh, no. I don't mind talking about. I mean, I love what I do.
Yeah.
But I'm sure other people probably aren't interested.
Well, what's your title? What do you do? What are you a doctor of?
Yeah, currently I'm I specialize in emergency medicine. I went to Penn State for my residency, and right now I'm at a level 2 trauma center. And I'm the assistant medical director there. And so I work clinically, and I occasionally will go to meetings and have to deal with patient complaints, things like that, process improvement. So, but I mean, really, clinically is what I enjoy doing. Teaching is what I really enjoy doing, but we're not a teaching facility at this time. It looks like we're...
Have you done that in the past?
Yeah, when I was at Penn State. Well, when I was at Penn State, I was chief resident. So you have a lot of teaching responsibilities when that happens. And then when I was at University of Tennessee, I was the medical director of that emergency department, and we had a lot of off-service specialists. So we didn't have an emergency medicine residency. So in other words, that's somebody that goes to medical school, becomes a doctor, and decides what they want to specialize in. We didn't have one that was emergency medicine specific, but we had internal medicine, family medicine, OBGYN. So you have these other people that have to do like a month on your service. Mm-hmm. And so, you get to kind of show them what they don't want to do for the rest of their life. Scare the hell out of them. And but teaching is really my first passion. The thing that people don't understand and don't realize is that there's really not a lot of financial compensation for these larger institutions that do teaching. And so,
which seems insane.
And it's counterintuitive, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you think of the large teaching institutions, you think, oh, Vanderbilt's the best, or, Duke is the best.
I heard from a guy, sorry to interrupt you, but they had like 3,000 applicants to Vanderbilt and only like 30 get through.
That's a high, like if you go to Vanderbilt as a resident, that's a 10 out of a 10 on your pedigree, put it that way. It's very well known, it's very well published, they got a great patient population to train from. So there are some places that are a little bit more prestigious than others. There's some that are prestigious, but their training program isn't. So I'll give you an example. There may be, let's just say John Hopkins. Everyone knows that name. Well, most people know that name.
Yeah, he's a basketball player for the Lakers,
there
right?
You go. Yeah, but there's also a hospital. And their emergency medicine program is relatively new. But if you said that name, you would instantly think, that's a place where there's a lot of applicants. And there might be, but they don't have a long, prestigious emergency medicine program. But you go do your surgery residency there, You kind of see the difference, but people just label names. The bottom line is it's almost like going to a jiu-jitsu school. It's what you make of it.
Yeah.
You know, you get the access to the information, you get access to the training partners, and what you do outside of that is completely up to you. So it's very similar to that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I guess that makes sense. Like all the learning outside of the learning, like.
Oh yeah. We would have didactic day on Tuesdays, which is when you're not seeing patients, all the residents meet and you get these lectures and 50% of them are awesome. The other 50% are just hogwash. Right. So I would actually have my computer out and I'd watch some of the UCLA or the USC lectures that were already online.
While you were at another lecture?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the back, with the headphones on, because I was chief resident. It's okay; nobody would question what I was doing.
Yeah, that's it. That I never thought about that because, like, in jiu-jitsu, obviously you go to school, you learn the techniques, you train the techniques there, blah blah blah. But like, the people that you see that excel a lot quicker are also the ones consuming it outside of just your regular school, whether it's like techniques or watching competition videos. So I never thought about that in like.
That's why when people ask me, they're like, hey, I really want to become a doctor. I don't necessarily have the greatest grades to get into the best medical school. Because, you know, not everybody is a bookworm, you know, not everybody just has whatever they may not know how to learn. Maybe now they're just having a desire to do something that academically takes a lot of accomplishments. So I tell them, don't worry about it. Just get in somewhere because it is what you make of it. And it's the same of any gym.
Yeah.
You know, as long as you continue to make more out of it. All you got when you go to medical school is your baseline learning, the patients that you're exposed to, and the opportunity for specialty training. It's the exact same thing when you go to a jiu-jitsu gym.
Wow. That's cool.
I don't mean to drag on talking about your career, but two things. First, do you think it's crazy that you have to do like get a regular degree in psychology before you go to med school?
So it's such a weird dichotomy. My first love is academics. My first love is teaching. How do I translate something that I see, I picture into you and have you be able to apply it and save somebody's life or make somebody's life better? It's a huge passion of mine. On a lot of different levels.
That and giving catheters. That's your second.
With my mouth. But the thing is, I hate academia. I can't stand the system that we have. It was kind of some of the same things I was complaining to you about last night.
Yeah.
The system of delivering that is so fucked up. It is beyond fucked up. You know, there is and you know what keeps the inertia going is because it's this monster that's already been created, and to change it would be like trying to take a 2,000-pound semi or 10,000-pound semi and change directions from the outside.
It's just like not to get political, but like changing the government system that's been in place for so long, and it's so large.
Exactly the same thing. It's that inertia of this is how we've done it, and this is how we'll do it. And the worst academia is medicine academia because it makes the slowest change.
Yeah.
So the system is so messed up. The system's so messed up that you need to get. Why in that 4 years that you're learning about biology are you not learning about
human biology or what?
So imagine in jiu-jitsu if we had to play. Before you could even step into a white belt class, you had to play tennis, soccer, football.
Exactly.
They're all dance, yoga. They all are going to help you with your jiu-jitsu, right? They're all going to give you an overall athletic performance that you're going to be able to use in jiu-jitsu. But the moment that you start jiu-jitsu, trying to hit that baseball plays no application to what you're doing.
Right.
You know, it was kind of a weeding out process. It was kind of an overall, do you know how to learn process? There is such a better way to do it, but that is such a fantasy. And you can get caught up into that, and then it's wasted energy because that system is not going to change. We are seeing a slight change in at least in specialty medicine as far as people not being so concerned about going to some of the more prestigious schools because they know when they get out they're going to practice in a community environment and not in an academic environment, so they'd rather train in a community environment. We're starting to see that little bit of a switch, but besides that, there's no major changes that you'll see in academia. It is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I work with two kids that are going off to college this year in their first year, and they both want to go pre-med, and just telling me some of the classes, I'm just like, it makes no. Why would you not spend your full time in school focusing on what you actually want to do?
Plus, too, it may halfway through it, you may decide I don't like this and don't want to do this. But on the system it is now, you've wasted because you've learned a lot. But yeah, it's like you could have figured that out earlier on.
Yeah,
probably
it needs revamping, but that's not going to happen.
So the second thing I wanted to talk about is just something you said last night that resonated with me, and I don't even know if you can really elaborate on it, but we're talking to you about your job, and
I'll do my best.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh no, you're talking to him. Oh, okay.
We were talking about your job, and you said that some mornings you can't even believe you're going to work.
Oh,
which is just so crazy that you're just so grateful to do what you do.
Yeah, I was talking about how so many times that dynamic that Justin was talking about, you invest 12 years of your life, you wake up one morning, you go, hate my fucking life.
Yeah.
But you're stuck now because, I mean, you literally, you got to make $3,000 to $4,000 a month just to pay off your student loans. Now, what are you going to do to accomplish that? It's not going to happen. So now they're stuck in this cycle of something that they can't stand. And it came about because I said, watch, I'll be that one asshole who actually loves his job. And then I lose my license for some reason. Because, the reality of it is, especially from a Stoic philosophy point of view, you always want to picture your life with not having anything, having everything stripped from you. So that's something I try to wrestle with all the time. And it does cause you to wake up in the morning and go, oh my God, I get to do this amazing job. I get to do this. I have this amazing life. Yeah, and it's something that when you grow up with nothing, when you grow up with a mom who didn't even have she didn't finish the 9th grade.
That's crazy.
She had to quit halfway through her 9th grade year. She had me on
We
her
did
own.
the same thing.
You guys did it by choice.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So you're saying that one day we could have kids who are successful. That's good.
Well, I mean, she wanted me to be a lawyer, but in any case, it's a whole nother story. But, you come from such meager beginnings and not being really successful all that much in scholastics in an early age, and just having, I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't supposed to be at a point where I can give my kids this much opportunity. These things weren't supposed to happen to me. At least that's the way I picture it, to make it more romantic, I think, in my mind.
Yeah.
But because of a chain of events that you don't have time for right now, it is a fairy tale story that I do not take for granted. So when I go to work and I wake up in the morning and I have a car that I know it's going to start. Do you know that that anxiety, is my car going to start? Can I get to work?
Well, I drive a Lexus, so not really, but
I do. I definitely do.
Dude, that post-traumatic stress stays with me to this day.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there are a lot of people out there that are like, shit, what do I have in the refrigerator? I don't know if I can eat today.
I just had to, and Chris helped me. Like, I had to get new tires, and granted, I'm very lucky. Like, I have people around me that I know would help me if I needed it. But, like, bought me new tires, and I'm just like, I hope my car lasts for these tires, because it could just be any day now. It just doesn't work.
Checking the oil?
Yes, dude. You know how good I'm checking that oil.
Great.
And I grew up, I grew up in Southern California, so I distinctly remember times sitting in traffic in my Volare. I think it was a 19.
I have never even heard of that.
Volare Raptor, bro.
Yeah, I had a Volare. Before
that's that's the make?
Plymouth Volare.
Oh, Plymouth. Okay, I know
Volare.
Plymouth.
It was their Volare. No. There's a song about it.
Even that melody sounds very dated.
Straight six engine, never gives out. Thank God, because I had that thing forever. But I'd sit there in nicer areas at the time when I was like training people, like private lessons and going to their house or whatever it was. And I'd look
when you
around,
were doing kickboxing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm looking at the cars. I'm like, how the fuck do people afford this? Like, how are these people managing to live day to day? And you get this thing where it's just like, it's not going to happen for me. And that's okay. So this is how I'm going to deal with it in my mind. And I'm okay with that. And so now, I tell my wife, the problems we have are rich people problems, man. How can you be upset that we're selling, we're buying, buying this house is so stressful.
Yeah.
It's like,
we're buying a house. Yeah.
that's like somebody being at the dealership going, I just can't pick between the Jag and the Mercedes, oh, this is so stressful. It's like, bitch, you don't know what the fuck stress is.
It's all problems are all relative though.
Are,
and that's like we can move on to talk more about like jiu-jitsu and stuff, but like growing up in Franklin, we were never the people, there's a lot of money here and a lot of our friends had a lot of things we didn't have, and our life, it wasn't terrible, but it's the problems are all relative. And I used to hold resentment, I guess, towards a lot of people around me that like had a lot of things we didn't
absolutely.
have. But then like as I've gotten older, I've realized like, yeah, even though their lives were better, when people would complain, I'm like, shut the fuck up. But also it's relative. Like they're feeling the same thing I'm feeling. It's just in a different place. You know what I mean?
No. I tried to make that argument at work the other night and I pissed some people off. I said to him, listen, man, stress is relative. Somebody at McDonald's that has a line that's going out the door and they got somebody yelling at them because their fries are cold, their stress is at a level 10. And when we're here and we're trying to save somebody's life, and things aren't going right, and our stress is a level 10, that's relative.
Yeah.
I had one doctor turn around. He's like, when I was delivering that baby, that shoulder got stuck. No.
Yeah.
So it's hard to convince people of that, but you don't know what chocolate is if you've never tasted it. Mm. And so if nobody's felt that level of stress, their stress that they're feeling really is that level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's the same feeling.
And I'm not trying to downplay anything that anybody does in a stressful situation, whether that's in war or whether that is a police officer trying and putting their life in danger, a firefighter running into a burning building. But it's just that emotion that somebody, if you've never felt that stress that you're feeling at McDonald's, trying to do your best, trying to get, give good service to these customers, having a manager breathing down your neck. Well, maybe that's it. And I'm sure if I went into that environment, no matter how stressful you made it, I'd be able to cope with it probably for the first 6 months. Yeah. And then after that 6 months, that would be my new, does that make sense?
Yeah.
And again, bring it back to jiu-jitsu. That's what makes jiu-jitsu so important. Yeah. Because it raises all of our ability to bring that stress level much higher to make our baseline. The idea is really to make that baseline untouchable.
Yeah. I was watching a show recently. I don't know if you've seen it. It's on Netflix. It's called Dark Tourist. It's really, really good.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. This guy goes and visits. Every episode's 3 different places he'll visit. It's like dark tourism, whether it's like in Mexico, he went to like an El Chapo tour, or not El Chapo. That's the Mexican guy, but El Chapo, right? Yeah. El Chapo like went to his place, and then he'll go to like Africa where they do voodoo. Well, he went to one place in Tennessee actually. That's like this haunted house, quote unquote, but it's really not a haunted house.
Can you look at us in the eyes when you're talking?
I'm just trying to think of what I'm saying.
Okay.
Was it just north of here?
Yeah, it's in Summertown, Tennessee.
Yeah.
The guy, what he does is he doesn't even take money from you or anything. You donate a big bag of dog food that he donates somewhere, and then you can donate cash, but he doesn't charge you anything. And you go and you get tortured by this guy. And he was like in the military, and there's like a 40-something page document that you have to sign before you do it. It says you possibly could die, you could get broken bones. There's like a list of things where you can say 3 things you absolutely don't want to happen. Like he'll give people tattoos and like all sorts of weird shit.
Is there a thing in there like nothing in my ass?
Yeah.
No anal.
Yeah. But so anyways, this guy went and did it. He met with the guy, and then he did a profile on the guy that was going to do the torturing or whatever, or have it done to him. And he decided, okay, I'm going to do it with you. And he lasted, maybe in the show it looked like just a minute, but I think it was probably 10 minutes to an hour, and it wasn't that bad of what he did.
Right.
And I jokingly said, I was like, I could definitely last way longer than that. He'll drown you and stuff.
And Aaron was like, yeah, right.
No, she didn't say that, but it was just like, you would do that? And I'm like, no, I wouldn't sign up for that for sure. I don't need to do that. But like you were saying in jiu-jitsu, I feel like those moments where you're like being pressured and you're claustrophobic, like I could probably handle being forced underwater for quite a while.
For a lot of us that haven't done military experience, or we haven't been captured or been a POW or anything crazy like that, being put in a situation where you can't breathe, or an arm is going to get broken, or you're just being crushed, or whatever it is, that is the closest thing to death a lot of people are going to feel. Because really what you're simulating, especially with the chokes, specifically with the chokes, that's death.
Yeah,
the
it's
person
simulated
has
death.
their life in your hands. And if you concentrate on it too much, it can actually make you a little nervous. But I mean, that's really what's happening. You are exhausted. You can't breathe. You can't think. You're doing things you weren't even taught. You're shaking. You're about ready to shit and piss yourself at the same time.
You're in this hot pajama uniform.
There's somebody's sweat dripping all over you.
Yeah.
And now you're slowly losing blood to your brain.
Yeah.
And you move, and now they're crushing your ribs, and now they're back to the choke. And that type, and I'm not a masochist by any means, but it is something that brings your tolerance of all other things to a higher level.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to sound tough or anything like that. I don't know. Maybe I would quit in that torture thing. But my thought was like, man, I've been through, those same feelings of drowning when Professor Reggie's squashing me.
Waterboarding.
Yeah, it's terrible sometimes. But in a way, it's like, you feel it's so rewarding after you survive it and realize it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about your martial arts history a little bit. What just go into that.
When did you start training?
But not even just jiu-jitsu.
No.
Right. No, because I didn't start in jiu-jitsu. I was so lucky because I had this mom that may have had absolutely nothing, but she always found a way. If I was interested in something, she would find any way she could to get me into it. So she couldn't afford, and this is all hearsay from her because at that time, I can't really remember. I don't remember the details, but I do remember her putting me into some type of community martial art program. And she would say, if she was alive, she'd tell you, hey, this was the only thing we could afford. It was free. I could take you. And man, I just absolutely loved it. And we ended up moving a little.
So what was the discipline?
It was
just
like
kind
some
of
kung
mix
fu, karate mix thing. I don't even know if I got belted. It's so long ago. I can't remember the specifics of it. I can't remember the instructor's name at this point.
Yeah. Were you in a gi?
Yeah. Oh, dude, I slept in that gi. Dude, you don't understand. When I was a kid, I wouldn't bring I would bring chopsticks everywhere I went.
Because you were just into martial arts, like into that culture.
Oh God, I would squint my eyes and wish I was
Oh
Japanese.
my gosh.
Isn't your wife
I would
Asian?
come up, and she's Asian. Yeah. And I would say like to my friends, like, hey, when I have a kid, I'm gonna name him
Bruce
Yeah,
Lee.
no way. No, that's too Chinese, homie. No, man. It was
Chinese.
Takashi or Musashi or... Dude, I was way into the Japanese culture, which is funny because the first martial art that I actually have recollection of was Kung Fu.
Which is what?
A Chinese martial art.
It's Chinese, though.
Yeah, and so that started... My mom was able to get me in somewhere. I got to a red sash, which is equivalent of a black belt, which is ridiculous as a kid. You know
I
what
know.
I mean? So you're just learning forms and, you're doing point sparring. There's no real full contact. I knew that my kicks weren't so good. I lost some tournaments because I felt like if I didn't really know how to kick. So I got into Taekwondo, and that's where I met a guy named David Key. And David Key was a former professional kickboxer for PKA. He was the guy I was talking to you about last night. He graduated from Georgia Tech. He was a quarterback there for their football team. He was a former wrestler. And he had an approach to martial arts that I'd never seen before because it was so traditional up until that point. And he said, why are we doing things traditional? Because we can find better ways to train. He taught me how to break down
So how old were you at this time?
At this time, I was 14. I had a time between I was 13 and 14 where the school I was at closed down. I started wrestling. Actually, I started wrestling at 12, and that was because it was free. And the reason why I wanted to wrestle, there used to be these role-playing games. You remember, like Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah.
But they had one that was specific for Marvel Comics. And I remember going through one of the character books, and it got to Captain America, and it said his skills. And it said
wrestling?
Olympic level wrestling. And I thought, man, yeah, every time I get into a fight, we're always fall to the ground.
Yeah.
So I got to learn how to wrestle. So I started wrestling in junior high.
Oh, okay.
And and it was free. And then I got to a wrestling club. And so that took up a lot of time until I met David Key. And he just changed the way I looked at martial arts. And that's really where my kickboxing started.
Is he
that's
still alive?
No, he just passed away. And I don't want to talk too good about him. And you're not supposed to talk bad about the dead. This is where we talked about just because somebody is really good at something doesn't mean they're good at everything, and it doesn't make them necessarily a good person.
Yeah.
But I have to give, and I struggle with this sometimes now. If you guys have been to my gym downstairs, I have pictures of everybody that is important to me up on the wall, and that might be
cool.
it might be lineage, it might be people I never met. But Primo Bella Rosa is up there. Gabe Renaga is up there because of some other people being involved with them. I have their picture up there. I have yet to put David's picture up. And I talked to my wife about that a lot because he really had some other qualities that weren't really admirable. But as far as the martial arts go, he changed my perspective on things. And that's where the Muay Thai training started. And I was able to he allowed me to make a name for myself.
Was it just his the difference in training and teaching that he had, compared to the traditional?
Oh, absolutely. These are the drills that they do in traditional martial arts. This is how we fight. The two don't mix. Mm-hmm. So eliminate those, and this is what we're going to do.
Things like katas and stuff.
Oh, yeah. We did limited katas, very limited. And he was a former kickboxer and he's a former boxer. So a lot of the drills we did, and that's when I first started going to Murph's downtown in San Diego to go train. I'd go to Mexico to go train in boxing. And those drills, because it made more sense to me. I'm like, if martial arts is so great, how come we don't have a martial artist heavyweight champ for boxing?
Yeah.
Well, they're two different sports, and you can argue that all day long. But the training regimen for boxing was completely different. It was so sports specific. Mm-hmm. Why am I training in a horse stance? Yeah. I'm not gonna. I mean, I use a horse stance now more in jiu-jitsu than I ever did in striking.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things you do just don't make sense.
So was MMA around at this time? So was he kind of like your first introduction into mixing?
He was
martial arts together?
he implemented a lot of wrestling into his self-defense techniques. So you had to learn so many self-defense techniques before you went on to your belts. But again, the self-defense techniques were a bit irritating because I'm like, okay, we're training these self-defense techniques, but we're training in theory. We're training in cooperative drills. But you don't get good with just those two things, right? Yeah. You have to actually spar. And if you're not sparring with those street fighting applications, how good are they really? And I knew this because, I got into a good number of fights when I was younger. Totally my fault. Totally because I just wanted people to like me, and that was my label. Because I was awkward and I didn't really have... I wasn't going to charm a young lady into liking me.
Yeah.
Okay. That shit was not going to happen. Okay. I was too nerdy. If you were a girl, if you're an adolescent girl, you were not interested in me. So my way of getting people interested in me, right or wrong, was, I've been labeled Karate Joe.
Dude, I'm totally not calling you Dr. Joe.
No more Dr. Joe.
Karate Joe.
So yeah, you kind of live up to that. And, so you take that. So that's kind of where that went. I ended up, after David and I had a breakup, I was either going to wrestle in college or teach for him, and he was supposed to pay my way through college. I ended up teaching for him, fighting for some other organizations. He got upset. We had a split, and I was kind of off on my own doing things, and then eventually opened up a school with a partner, and that's about the time that Monteiro Jiu Jitsu was big in Del Mar, Gracie School in Torrance. And Fabio Santos had yet to open up his school, but it was just about ready to open. And I had gone to
So are you saying there's only
at this time,
two schools in Southern
California? I'm sure the Machados had a school.
I mean, and by two schools in Southern California, that's pretty much two schools in the entire United States at that time.
Probably. I think Carlson might have had his place in Chicago.
Okay, yeah.
But and if somebody fact checks me, I'm sure I'm off with my dates a little bit.
Yeah,
But the big thing was there was Monteiro Jiu Jitsu in Del Mar, and there was the Torrance School. And I went to Mexico to do a shoot fighting event, which you show up and and it was a complete exhibition. They just asked me, they say, hey, I can't remember, like 50 pesos or $50, can you show up and fight? I'm like, yeah, sure, we'll do this. And you show up and they just say, here are the rules. We had the big Kempo gloves that Bruce Lee had in Enter the Dragon, those big padded open gloves. And you just go, and those are the rules, and did pretty well the first couple of them. They asked me, I think I might have done 3 or 2, and there was this guy that showed up, and he was from Monteiro Jiu Jitsu. I didn't know that at the time, but I knew every time I shot in for a double leg on this guy, he was doing something I didn't like. And so I just knew from wrestling, deconstruct whatever he wants to do. And so I'm deconstructing it. I'm sure he almost got me in a triangle at one point. And, you know, it was a draw. It was an exhibition. There's no winner or loser. His name was Ricardo. I never got to train with him. Mm-hmm. I'm sure he probably was only a white belt or a blue belt at most. But I did go to Monteiro's at that time. And, man, that was fucking brutal.
So what year was this? Okay,
again, I'm trying to go back.
Roughly.
My best, I think it was 93, 94.
Dang, that's early.
It was right. Oh, man, and I'm getting this mixed up. Was it before the UFC or after? And I can't remember. It might have been after. So maybe it was 95.
I think that's kind of like right when the UFC started.
Yeah, 94 was when.
Okay.
Yeah, I was at Rich Love's house. I remember watching the first one. I can tell you, everybody who was there remember that like yesterday. But going down to Monteiro's was tough. Yeah, it might have been 95 maybe. Going to Monteiro's was tough because I would go and they beat the shit out of me. And all respected to Professor Monteiro, but at the time, dude, I'm telling you, man, we would just do these crazy ass warm-ups. You would line up and people would catch you and stuff, and you're just like, dude, what did you do? Oh, it's a tough position, my friend. I'm like, yeah, motherfucker, I know, I understand, it's a tough position, I understand, that's why I was tapping. What did you do?
Yeah.
And it was something as simple as an underhook to take your back. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. We don't do that.
So there wasn't really instruction? Is that
all respect to Professor Monteiro. Yeah. There was no instruction at that time, at least not to me. Now, you got to imagine, I wasn't going there religiously because, you know, I get a phone call on Monday. Hey, can you make 155 on Saturday for $100? Fuck yeah, I can. I got to pay my electric bill.
How many fights have you done?
I had a ton of amateur fights. I had a total of 11 pro fights.
Oh, okay.
I lost my first 2 pro fights, and then I went 9 pro fights. Winning, making excuses for every single one.
Yeah.
You know, that guy wasn't that good. Oh, he must have been sick. And probably by my last couple of fights, I kind of realized like, oh no, I think I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then at the end of this shit, I end up doing a smoker.
Okay, those are like the illegal underground.
Hey, Joe, can you just show up? We'll just do a couple rounds with this guy. I end up losing the smoker. And then
so you were going in thinking, I'm going to rough this guy up.
No, it's just a good workout.
Oh, okay.
It's a good workout. You know, which is unheard of for a pro guy to do. But, you know, guy asks a favor. We're having an event at the gym. Do you mind fighting this guy? And it wasn't like a knockdown, drag out fight. But I ended up losing that smoker. And I'm just like, you know, where am I going with this? Mm-hmm. Not a lot of money involved. And I enjoyed teaching more than anything else. But anyways, so I had a friend of mine, Matt Stanzel, who was a blue belt at that time from Torrance, that later on got his black belt from Roy Harris, that would teach some of the grappling classes at my school. And so, and then it's about that time we ended up moving to, my wife got into physician assistant school, and we moved to Rochester, New York, and that was about in 99.
So at this point, you were not...
I wasn't belted at this time.
Well, going to your career, were you in college at this point?
So I did a little college with Amy. She would take some classes. I would take classes with her. She was interested in becoming a physician assistant. I knew this is embarrassing, completely embarrassing story. And I don't normally tell this. What motivated you to become a doctor?
It's for the podcast, bro. You got to tell.
Yeah. So it was probably 3 things.
Okay.
The first thing was when I first met Amy, she was house sitting in Del Mar. What is Del Mar? No. In a nicer area in San Diego. And I walked into this house. I'm like, God damn. What does this guy do? And she's like, oh, he's a doctor. I'm like, oh, they always thought I was going to be a doctor in high school. And I'm looking up. And, dude, I'm a bouncer at this time. I have a little rinky-dink kickboxing gym that's making no money.
Were you guys weren't married at this point?
Oh, no. Hell no. No, I just wanted to bang her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was it, man. Dude, I was just sexually attracted to her like nothing else. And here's this goddess. I mean, she's beautiful. And she's interested in me.
And let's not forget, your children are going to listen to this, right?
Yeah, my son walked in on us this morning.
Oh, my God.
So anyways.
It'd be great.
I just simply told him, get the hell out, shut the door, and locked it. Amy's like, oh, I don't feel comfortable. So in any case, I mean, I'd been in a long relationship. I really wasn't interested in that type of thing, but we met, and so we come to this house, and this house motivates me.
It'd be great if it turned out it was Dr. Dre's house.
Yeah.
And the guy wasn't a doctor at all.
And that'd be awesome. And then the show ER.
Okay.
Which sounds totally stupid. And I never admitted that for years.
That was with George Clooney, right?
Yeah, but before he was on the show.
Okay.
And I was so like, dude, this show is amazing. It motivated me. And of course, the third one was my wife.
Yeah.
Because here is this girl who definitely deserves, in my opinion, you know, the way I felt, deserves the best. And I was slowly realizing the best didn't mean the toughest. Mm-hmm. That was a hard thing for me to get through my head. It was a really hard thing for me to say the best isn't necessarily the toughest. I want to be able to give her the best opportunity. And so it motivated me really to go back to school. I want to give this girl the best life I can. And it is really funny how that changes as you get older, because that interpretation of what is the best life isn't always financially. Right. And you don't learn that until you get older.
When you said toughest, do you mean like as like being a martial arts person?
Oh, yeah, dude. I was a total bulldog, alpha male.
Well, it's because, like you said, it became a part of your identity of like when you were a kid. That was your only way of getting attention, was being Karate Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so we ended up moving out to Rochester, and then I continued jiu-jitsu there with the guy named Kyle Saunders, who is actually under Roy Harris. We got to remember there weren't a lot of guys at that time around, but I was in physician assistant school at that time, and didn't have a lot of time to train. Would train as much as I could, but never really progressed. And the same shit happened at every gym I'd go to from that point on. Oh, you know a little bit about striking. I have a fight coming up, and I think a combination of I love teaching, and teaching sometimes is a lot easier than working out. So, hey, let's take you off to the side and let's work on things. So did that there with some guys in Rochester. And then when I went to Harris, Erie, the same thing happened. Team DNA that was there.
So you wouldn't really be able to focus on your jiu-jitsu because you were helping them with their striking.
Yeah, and that's my fault. Yeah. You know, I had a hard time saying no to people. There's a lot of people that helped me out. I kind of felt I need to help them out, and it's not as important to me anymore. Harrisburg, the same thing happened. Nick Ortiz, he owned Harrisburg Mixed Martial Arts, and man, I just loved teaching. And then my son Jackson at the time, he was wrestling, but he would, because they didn't have kids jiu-jitsu, but he was there to see his old man teach. And so back when I was younger, I loved it when Amy would watch me teach. It was like my stage to try to impress her, right? Yeah. Now it was my time to show my son, who probably would be more interested in playing with his pecker, watching his dad teach. But in my mind, it was like, "Hey, boy, this is gonna change your life. Yeah. Watch your old man. Keep this in your mind, because this will change your life." And it wasn't until I moved to Tennessee where I said, "You know what? I haven't been working on me. Fuck this. Nobody's gonna even know I know how to hold a mitt." And trained at Samuel's. That's where I got Samuel Braga's. That's where I got my blue belt.
Okay, so you were a white belt all that whole time.
And deserve it too. Yeah, my skill level was not improving. And if anything, my skill level got worse, because the skills I had as a wrestler, I certainly didn't have anymore because of age, because of lack of practice, or whatever it may. Age. The age is a whole different story. But
that's why he's so positive.
Yeah.
You're an idiot, dude. All right, let's take a quick break.
Yeah. Okay.
There's so many little stories in there.
Yeah.
I feel like we have like not a lot of good beneficial stories because we were young, fucking trying to be thugs, dude. So,
what do you mean beneficial stories?
Like, I think
for the podcast?
Yeah. Because we'd be like, yeah, one time I ate 10 hits of acid and the moon was flying around, and then my friend started puking.
So, all right. So we kind of took a little break. You kind of decided you wanted to train jiu-jitsu and for yourself and not focus on teaching. Kind of, I guess, go from there, or like to now. You moved to Nashville. That's how we met you. So you started training at Gracie Baja Franklin.
Yeah, I think you led the first class I think I had.
Probably, yeah.
Because I remember you asking me about Joe Watson.
Oh, yeah,
and then you asked me how did Samuel Braga do his warm-ups.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
really?
Oh yeah, not like this.
Not like this. Yeah. I remember training with you for the first time too, because I was.
So were you working at the gym or no?
Yeah, I think I worked. That was
he was
like
a purple belt at the time.
Yeah, I think that was towards like probably the last 6 months of like working at the gym.
Dang, so we've known you for like 3 years
now.
Yeah,
because I remember talking to my wife, and she's like, "So how was it?" And I go, "Oh man, I did pretty well, except they have this purple belt there, dude. It was not fun."
Well, I remember like like you told me you trained at Samuel Braga's, and so I was like, oh, he's probably pretty good. I gotta do my.
He was just terrible.
Do my best. No, not terrible. I think I knew that. I think I probably asked you because I can usually tell if you wrestled in the past because I think I could tell that you had wrestled.
Well, the thing is, when you're, I'm 44 now, so I had an above average wrestling career.
Yeah,
above average. It wasn't great. It was good enough to go to college, but it wasn't good enough to be an all-star.
Did you wrestle at Penn State?
No,
okay.
God, I wish, man. Okay. I wish, yeah. No, I didn't wrestle at Penn State. I went to El Camino High School. I wrestled my freshman year.
El Camino High School.
And then I ended up wrestling AAU from that point out.
I don't know. What was that?
It's like a club league.
Oh, okay.
And that's really what you want to do when you want to go to the Olympics versus folk wrestling. So I wrestled quite a bit at that time. Club. It was called the North County Bulldogs. And that was when I was younger. Then they kind of broke up. But I wasn't going to be a great wrestler. And those skills are like, dude, I can teach them. I can teach you the drills. My body doesn't move like that anymore. I mean, unless you're practicing, you know, you're not going to be able to do those. You're not going to be able to shoot like you were, do a duck under like you did. And there's so many things that you do in wrestling that we just don't do in jiu-jitsu, like tilts and, you know, when was the last time you put a half Nelson in somebody? You know what I mean? To turn their back to the mat. So,
what was your thought process when you first? Because you had all this previous martial arts experience, including grappling. Like, what was your thought process when you first got introduced into jiu-jitsu, and like maybe compared to now to like, did it hurt your ego to? Because like obviously it doesn't matter if you know a bunch of martial arts. Just like if I went to a kickboxing or taekwondo class and like fought Spartan when I get my ass kicked more.
Right.
But in your head, you'd be thinking, motherfucker, if I got you to the ground.
Yeah. So how did that affect you at all?
I think that was because at that time I was still pretty young. So I think it was a very mood specific question. You get me in a Zen state and I'm like, yes, I've emptied my cup and I'm obtaining knowledge. Right. Yeah. But you get me in another like alpha male state and I'm like, fuck that, dude. I'd like to see somebody try to take me down.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't think I was one way or the other. I think I definitely had my moods. I definitely had my fantasies of what, you know, how would the fight go if real fight. This isn't a real fight. But it's kind of hard to dispute seeing Hoyce out there doing what he was doing and say, I've got to learn this and I've got to learn it in its pure state. And it wasn't until you started seeing strikers come along that I started thinking, oh, yeah, I think my striking does have some utility too.
Yeah.
You know, so I think I went back and forth on that a lot.
How do you feel about it now? Like, obviously you probably train jiu-jitsu more and it's more of a practice for you than the other martial arts or like kickboxing or anything.
Yeah.
Like, do you value one more than the other, or does one make you feel better than the other?
Yeah, I have to say that, you know, it's funny because I struggle with that now. Like, I do picture a future life. I do picture a life later. Oops. Where I try to eat the microphone. I do picture this life of Amy and I on the beach somewhere with a very small school. And this is the question that goes to my head, is that school going to have bags?
Yeah.
Am I going to have some tie bags up? Am I going to have focus mitts there? Like, what is my focus going to be in the future? You know, I do, and like I said this to you last night, Chris, when we were talking about striking, there is a knowledge set there. It's stale and it's old because unless you're constantly working on it, you can't fool yourself into saying, you know, I was great at analyzing fighters. I was great at breaking down fighters. That makes me great today. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It means you were yesterday. So you got to keep it in perspective. But I am so in love with jiu-jitsu now for a number of different reasons, especially at my age and especially what it provides for my children, that I don't look at the striking aspect all those years with a lot of, I appreciate it, but it's kind of lost.
Yeah.
It's kind of lost in the background.
Do you teach your kids any basic striking stuff?
Yeah, and that's another hard thing. You know, it's like today, if a kid punches another kid, doesn't matter what, they're wrong.
They're both, yeah.
Striking doesn't have a volume switch. If you try to use a volume switch with striking, you're going to get hurt. So in other words, when you're in a confrontation with jiu-jitsu, you have the option of separating, closing the distance, taking it down, controlling the situation, maiming them, or maybe just making them go to sleep.
Yeah.
And that's the best case scenario when you're completely controlling everything. And in striking, you don't have that volume switch. Because if you don't strike at a level at 10, you're going to be at greater danger. And the problem with striking, a striking situation versus a grappling situation, is the room for error is limited. So let me ask you this. This is a couple of weeks ago. We had a world-class kickboxer in the UFC. The names escape me right now. And he fought a no-name kind of wrestler guy who'd been working on his striking right away, or for a while. This world-class striker gets knocked out. Now, we don't see that happen at a significant frequency, right? But it does happen. Now, I want to ask you this. How often do you see Damian Maia get choked out by a guy who's only been training jiu-jitsu for... Now, why is that?
There's a lot more chance, I guess.
There's the room for error in striking is minimal. The room for error in jiu-jitsu is layered. So, in other words, you take me down. Okay, you took me down. I'm going to change position. I'll sweep you. I'll keep you in my guard. Okay, you took me down. You've passed my guard. No problem. I'm going to turtle up. I'll stand up. Oh, some miraculous way you got to my back. Well, I know how to protect my neck. So you see how there's so many layers to jiu-jitsu that make it so much, the probability of coming out of the fight on your end is much higher than in a striking situation.
Yeah.
The room for error in striking is not there. There is no room for error.
The layer of that, I guess the metaphor for layers is pretty... Keenan Cornelius talks about that with like guard. There's layers of guard where like at a certain point, if they get to that last layer, they're going to pass your guard. But there's layers of defense where you can recover from and whatever. But like you're saying with striking, you move your head or don't tuck your chin in one way, like that's one layer. You're knocked out.
Yeah, I mean, and there are layers, but those layers are thinner.
Yeah.
So foot position, head position, shoulder position. How protected are you when you're striking? You know, where's your balance? There are tons of layers there. So I don't want to talk down or manage down when it comes to striking.
Right.
But those layers are much thinner.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. So taking all that into consideration, to me, for the kids, grappling is such a better segue into what I want them to learn through martial arts, what I think they need to have these building tools to life. But yeah, I mean, dude, Eli, my middle, all he wants to do is punch the mitts and kick. And so we go down, we do that. And Jackson, he doesn't seem as interested. And Joey, he's just 5 years old, picking his nose and scratching his ass. You know, he doesn't even know. But
what are the ages of your kids?
Joey's 5, Eli's 8, Jackson's 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you seen a change? Have they done jiu-jitsu or martial arts their whole lives, or did you get okay?
Yeah, I'd say you got to learn to read, you got to learn to write, you got to learn to play an instrument, you got to learn a separate language.
Jackson was playing the piano last night when I walked out to hit the vape real quick. He was over there playing the piano. I was like, dang, kid.
Well, he's applying that principle of, I'm going to practice for 10 minutes. I'm going to practice for 10 more minutes. I got some time. I'm going to practice for 10 minutes. You do that every day. Look how much you've practiced.
Yeah.
So we'll go downstairs and it's like, dude, let me just do this real quick. Let me do this. Bam, 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 bam. And you've seen this big jump in his game because of that. So he's doing physics this summer. He's doing physics because he wants to do physics. He bought an AP physics book. He's learning little problems at a time. And it's that same
going
principle.
into 8th grade?
He's going into 8th grade, yeah.
Geez.
And I'm like, bro, you're not even through pre-algebra yet. Yeah. Don't worry about this. Because he's always asking me, and I'm like, listen, man, I have to read the book again to even remember that. But it's that principle of discipline, doing a little bit at a time, getting better. So, yeah, I mean, since the moment that they were, even Joey would throw the gi on him, go do a double leg, get used to that contact. And because it is, I think for a young man, and I hate to be sexist about that because I'm sure young women would get the same benefit. For me, I have boys, so I phrase it in that way. I think it's essential for a young man because there's so many things in life that you get intimidated by, and learning to defend yourself is a way of never compromising your values out of fear. And that was what will happen. How many of us have not liked something, but we're with a group of people and we're like, oh, yeah, I like that. Like the other night, you're talking about Quentin Tarantino. I don't like him. I'm like, fine, that's great, man. You didn't just go with the flow and be like, I like that.
No, I didn't say I didn't like him. Just to clarify, I said I didn't like Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, I misspoke. Yeah, I'm not being precise with my language there.
You're dumb, Chris.
So, but the point being is that, you these social pressures, these times where you would be fearful, man, that shit gets real quiet. Martial arts makes it real quiet. It really does. And that's really important for a young man to have.
Yeah.
And there's so many pressures. There's so many. When I was in medical school, we had our first cadaver lab. So what that is you walk into a room, there's a bunch of dead bodies, and everything's labeled. And you might be on a certain area.
Have you heard Louis C.K.'s joke about cadavers?
No.
Oh, okay. Keep going. I'll tell you what it is because it's quick and funny.
So our first test was like, I don't know, muscular identification of muscles, right? I think that might have been it. And I'm standing in line, and we at the school had to do everything by alphabetical order. So a guy named Schmidt was in front of me, okay? And good friend of mine, he actually has passed away since then. And we trained together all throughout. He wrestled at Case. Guy's just Josh Schmidt was his name, just amazing guy. And we made that connection because of wrestling, jiu-jitsu. And he looked around while we're standing in line, all these people freaking out. And I mean, they were freaking the fuck out. And he and I are just standing there like, oh, we're just going to go in there and do the test.
Yeah.
And he said something I think came from Dan Gable. He said, oh, man, dude, wrestling just makes everything so much easier. He's like, I'm used to somebody across the mat that wants to, like, break my neck.
Yeah.
We're just going to take a test.
Yeah.
It makes everything so much more quiet. And so if you can give that to your kids, and that's part of that martial art training, not just the self-defense part, but that being able to deal with all these different things. And if you guys have seen that transition that Jackson has gone through, you have seen this amazing change in him. And it's 100% because of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and his jiu-jitsu is getting very good. I mean, when I roll with him, he passes my guard better than... Well, I shouldn't say he passes. Oh my god!
But like he uses,
his technique.
Yeah.
His technique
Yeah.
is better than blue belts.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he moves his hips. He's controlling my legs.
Yeah.
I mean, he does. He's doing really good.
And the best thing about it is his work ethic, and you can see that starting to translate into Eli too. And
Yeah.
Eli's doing the same thing.
Well, and I want to give you credit because it really comes from you. In his gym, he has a whiteboard that has like their daily workout that each boy's supposed to do and their drills.
And mine too. So
Yeah.
I try to hold myself to the same standard.
Yeah, so like, dude, it's just crazy. I wish we grew up with that sort of discipline, you know.
Well, I think it's really like you were leaving the house last night, right? And I said like I feel sorry for these kids because this type of shit that's spewing out of my mouth is like nonstop at home. and from a certain. Sometimes I'm like, oh fuck, dude, they're gonna need some serious therapy when they get older.
No way.
But with that being said, you know, we were driving. He was really pissed at himself the other night because I gave him the option: do you want to stay for no gi or not? Now, I wasn't gonna stay no matter what, but I wanted to hear what his response was because we needed to feed. Joey's sitting there, I'm hungry. So we had to go. And he was beating himself up. He's like, I made a bunch of excuses and they were all lies. They weren't real. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. And he said, I'm worried about later on in life, I won't do jiu-jitsu and this and that. And I said, listen, man, this is not a fun ride. It's not always fun.
No.
There's times, and I've been honest with him, I will drive up and I'm like, fuck, man, I do not want to practice right now.
Yeah.
I let him know that. But I tell him, man, I know this is a hard ride. This isn't playing video games. This isn't going to a friend's house. I'm sure he's starting to get interesting. This isn't like being somewhere where maybe you get to make eye contact with a chick, you know what I mean? It's just, this isn't something that normal people do. But I promise you, years from now, you'll thank me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and like, I think a big difference too is like, you're not a parent that, one, like, first of all, when they compete, I'm sure you don't really give a shit whether they lose or win. You know, obviously you want them to win.
Yeah.
But you have been...
Yeah, no, I mean, there's something that you want them to win so they stay encouraged to train.
Yeah.
That is the only thing.
Yeah.
I was nervous at his last tournament, not because I wanted him to win.
Right.
I was nervous because I don't want him to have something happen where he loses that little bit of interest he's starting to gain now. But then again, if he did, it would probably be a good thing.
Yeah.
That's why the last tournament was the best. He dominated his division, and then struggled and got choked the fuck out.
But he went up and
he did.
Yeah.
And
did they just
for
need
him.
more kids? And they said, hey, do you want it?
Yeah. And when I first said it to him, he's like, don't want to do it. He's like, nope, don't want to do it. And of course, I'm saying, I'm not forcing you, but I'm forcing you. And they said, just listen, man, you just saw me. The best thing, they've never seen me lose. They've never seen me lose until that last tournament.
Really?
Yeah. So it was great.
Because you lose all the time. So that's so weird.
Yeah. So they're just not there at the right time. And I just told him, I said, you know what, dude, I got demolished. And you got to get out there. You got to get out there. And so he did. So out of one day, the only thing that could have made that better was for him to have a match where he struggled and came from behind. And it's just that thing where I've won my medals.
Yeah.
I've done. I'm happy with my life.
Yeah.
I mean, I really want. There's a couple things in life I want. I'd love to see them get married. I never thought I'd say that. I want to see them fall in love.
Yeah.
I would love to go on a few more vacations with my wife. I really want to see what the Star Wars place looks like in Florida when they build it. But besides that, man, I have a good fucking life.
Yeah.
If I die on the way home, I'm okay. And they're financially set, which is the best.
Yeah.
So it's not about me. I've done me. I'm still doing me. It's fine. I just want these kids. If you're not around anymore.
It's all good, dude.
Yeah. That's
You want them to have those tools.
Yeah. I think you're doing a fantastic job at raising your kids. I mean,
they're probably snorting coke right now.
13 years old, playing Fortnite, snorting blow.
Yeah, we sold him some. Your oldest, we sold him some weed. He came up. But yeah, it's cool too because you train jiu-jitsu. You do it yourself. The biggest thing I hated when I worked at a jiu-jitsu school was seeing the parents that would coach their kids from the side of the mats, and it's always almost 99% of the time it's the dad. The mom, the moms just want the kids to have
like,
fun.
Motherfucker, you don't even train.
Yeah, and so that was very difficult for me to see for these people to tell their kids what to do. And I'm like, you're not even brave enough to take the class yourself,
Yeah.
So you being in a position where you're also doing it with them, I think that's what
Leading
separates.
by example,
yeah, that separates that a lot.
Because when parents just say you need to do this, it's like, motherfucker, I don't ever see you get up and do the dishes. Mom's always doing it. So why the hell are you telling me? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What I wanted to ask you, what are some I'm big on finding the parallels between two things, even especially when they're very different from each other, like practicing medicine and jiu-jitsu. What are some different parallels that you may have experienced or seen, if there are any, really, whether it's between training, competing, and what you do on the day-to-day?
For medicine?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Boy, that we can go on for. I'll try to condense it as best I can.
Yeah.
Okay. So, when you're taking care of people, when you're dealing with a person's disease or an acute, what I mean by acute is an urgent issue. It's like stepping on the mat. Okay, and that thing that you're dealing with is ever evolving. So Danaher probably put this the best, as he said that it's like a math problem that's constantly changing as you're answering questions.
Yeah.
Okay. And that is the same thing that happens in jiu-jitsu, and it's the same thing that happens in medicine. As you're dealing with somebody's problem, you get more information. Your path changes. Your therapies change. And getting tapped out means somebody dies, right? And so there's a close parallel to there. The work ethic that it takes to get better at jiu-jitsu is the same that it takes to get better at medicine. Because if you just do your job and you come home and do your job and you just come home, you're not keeping up with the latest literature. You're not finding the best therapies. You're not being critical. You're not examining how you did things and how you could have done them better. And so I'm sure that you can take jiu-jitsu and you can apply it to any career, no matter what it is. Mm-hmm. I don't care what it is. And it gives you the blueprint for success. You're going to feel fear at your job. You feel that in jiu-jitsu. You're going to overcome. You're going to feel it in jiu-jitsu. You're going to get your ass handed to you. And you got to bounce back from that. And that's the way it is. I mean, imagine when you're trying to resuscitate a 3-year-old kid and it dies.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go take care of the sore throat that's down the hall?
Jeez.
So, now that doesn't happen that often.
Right.
It doesn't. But when it does, or you have a walkie-talkie come in and they die right in front of you, and you do everything that your training has told you. So a walkie-talkie is like somebody coming in saying, "Hey, doc, man, I'm having some chest pain." And you're like, "Hey, no problem, Mr. Smith. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. We're going to check you out." And then nurse comes up, "Hey, Dr. Spinell, Dr. Joe, Dr. Spinell, room 6, he doesn't look so good." And you go in, he doesn't look so good because he doesn't have a pulse anymore. So, but you take care of that. Wife asked you, he was talking when he came in. Now you got to go take care of that person. You've been there to hear it. Doc, I need something for my back. Yeah.
When I was there was a guy, he was having chest pain and he wanted pain medication. You're like, we don't give pain medication for chest pain.
Yeah. Cardiac chest pain doesn't need narcotics.
Yeah.
So there's a lot. There are a lot of parallels with that, but I think with any job, because I think the one thing that jiu-jitsu teaches you that you will experience if you have a worthwhile career is how to bounce back when you're down. Mm-hmm. Because unless you're talking an exceptional top of the line Andre Galval or somebody like, I mean, hell, how many matches has Keenan lost?
Yeah,
Keenan loses all the time too.
Yeah.
Now he wins more than he loses, which seems to be the exception in this sport. But it certainly does teach you to bounce back.
Yeah.
And if you don't learn to bounce back, you're quitting jiu-jitsu. The people that learn or figure out, hey, this has been the worst month of my jiu-jitsu journey, but you keep going, and eventually.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's why so many purple belts drop out.
That's crazy. It blows my mind that a purple belt would stop training.
So one of the first guys I ever wrestled with, and this guy's just absolutely amazing. I can't think of the name of his gym right now. His name was Michio Grubbs. His brother.
That's a dope name.
Dude, this guy, fucking amazing. He wrestled at El Camino where I went to school. His younger brothers were my coaches. And he was one of the first guys I ever wrestled when I was on that North County Bulldog team. And I actually taught his oldest son, karate.
Karate Joe.
Yeah.
Karate Joe.
And he ended up getting his black belt from Chris Hautzer, one of the first American black belts.
Oh yeah, he's that one. Yeah, I know.
So that's his professor. Now he has a place in Oceanside. I think it's Excel Jiu-Jitsu. It might be the name of it. He's a great guy. But Chris Hautzer, his professor, said something. He said, blue belts quit because life gets in the way. And I think he says purple belts quit because their ego gets in the way.
Yeah.
And I think when you level out and you're like, I think this is as good as I'm going to get, and I still get my ass kicked, that's when you really learn. You really learn to start coming back from getting knocked down. Yeah. Because you have all the excuses in the world before purple belt, right? Well, I don't know anything. I just got taught something. Everybody's a higher rank than me. Well, you start getting up to purple belt, and dude, you're like struggling with a blue belt that you shouldn't be struggling with in your mind. That's a huge kick to the balls.
Yeah.
Not to mention if a white belt catches you in something.
Yeah.
And you're going home and you're just like, what the fuck? That's getting knocked down.
Yeah.
And
it happens all the way
it happens.
But
to
nobody
me.
talks about it. So nobody talks about it. So you don't think it's supposed to happen to you. And you just think, I have no talent.
Yeah.
This isn't for me. And then they end up quitting. And so, but you can't.
Yeah.
You can't. That's the lesson. That's the lesson. That's the lesson when you come home and your wife is fucking some other dude and your marriage goes to shit and the dog just died and you find out your kid's doing blow in the back. What, are you just gonna fold up and say no? You gotta bounce back.
Keep fighting.
You gotta keep fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got tapped at an open mat a couple weeks ago by this blue belt who doesn't really even train like that much anymore. And he got me with a choke, dude, and it was the worst fucking feeling. But I didn't walk off the mats and quit, you know. You just got to keep going.
Oh, what about
shit happens.
Wes?
Oh, he's tapped me before.
You guy's an animal.
Yeah.
But he shows up,
the
blue
blue
belt,
belt.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, let's go, buddy. And I remember I didn't eat anything that much. I was fasting. I just gotten off the flu. But I'm like, those are no excuses. I'm going to show this guy what's up. Dude, he handed me my ass.
Yeah.
And still does.
Well, I don't... you just have to realize that just because someone taps you out doesn't mean that their jiu-jitsu's better. Not that it even really matters, but it doesn't mean that your jiu-jitsu sucks. That's what I told George after his last match. I said, he lost, and of course he's so hard on himself. I'm like, dude, just because you lost doesn't mean that you suck at jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You got caught, bro. That's just what happens.
Yeah, how many times does that happen in a 20-minute roll? And I have noticed, like, I usually lose my first 20-minute roll, and then I can win my next 2 or 3 with that same person. It's funny. I think it must be a mentality thing. It's a total mental thing with me. I think it even goes back to kickboxing. I used to have somebody like hit me a few times and I'm like,
wake
okay,
you
bitch,
up a little bit.
Yeah. So it doesn't have anything to do with that. I mean, it's not you. It certainly doesn't translate to you as a person, which is unfortunately what people tend to do. It doesn't mean that you suck. It's just, hey, the guy's a pro belt, you're a pro belt. It's going to go one way or another.
Sometimes you forget, like, the reason you got into jiu-jitsu and, like, probably got most excited about it was when you saw what jiu-jitsu can do when someone was kicking your own ass.
Yeah.
And then somewhere throughout the journey, you forget that and, like, think that that's not supposed to happen anymore, that it's a bad thing.
But that's the very thing that got you into jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. So it's a constant, like, struggle of ego and perspective.
But my ego is always okay when it comes to this, because I do the same thing I did with the striking. You know, like, well, I won't let you to. In my mind now, at my old age, I'm like, fuck, I can teach better than you. Like, I know I can teach. I can always fall back on teaching. I know I can teach. And so that's like my ego check that probably shouldn't be there. It'd be a better lesson for me if it wasn't there. But I always have something in my back pocket so I don't go in the back room and cry.
Yeah. And that, just rationalizing it all, I guess.
Besides shaking my head saying I suck. And a lot of times when I'm shaking my head like that, it's not so much me. I feel bad for the people that are trying to get ready for a tournament or they're trying to improve. And I'm trying to give them the best look I can. It's like, you've seen it before, and I think you think I'm mad at myself. And a lot of times I'm not. I'm just like, dude, I just want to be a better partner. I want to make you struggle. And right now, you haven't even broken a sweat.
Yeah, that's funny. I've always thought you were really hard on yourself.
I mean,
I'm sure some of it
has to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some of it has to be.
I always thought you were really hard. Like, when we were rolling, you always got an erection.
How'd you know? It's so small.
I was close. But you hear that a lot, too, of people, like, where they say, like, I'm sorry, man, I wish I could give you more. But it's like, yeah, they're just, like, wishing they were putting up a better fight, not necessarily for themselves, but for you.
Yeah. And that even might go back to, like, my day. I was really selective on who I sparred with. I'm like, bro, we've got 90 minutes.
You mean in jiu-jitsu?
No, for like kickboxing. Okay. I've got 90 minutes, bro. I can't do that right now. You start getting anxious about your fight and everything. It's just like, no. Yes. Okay, that's it. 2 guys. You 2, we're working out. And it goes back to that self, because I remember what it's like, and it's okay to be that way when you're trying to prepare for a tournament or something. You're not there to, work on people's spirituality. We're there to get better.
Yeah.
I mean, real quick, if you want to talk about the UFC fights last night, what'd you think about them? I know it's a random
I
segue.
thought they were.
Yeah.
Did you see them last night?
I didn't see them, but I saw the results. To be honest, I can't remember the last MMA fight I watched. I haven't been super interested in it for whatever reason, but I saw the results. Yeah, and I saw some of the
2 main
highlights.
Fights were good.
I thought a lot of the undercards were pretty good.
Yeah.
There were quite a few people I wasn't too familiar with on them on that card, but I thought the last 2 fights were rocking, man.
Yeah, they were good.
I'm
you guys want to say
DJ.
who fought? Oh. Yeah, no one really said.
I already said bummed about
Mighty Mouse and Cejudo, and then Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw. Which I was disappointed Cody Garbrandt lost, but he's just so reckless, dude. He does it to himself.
Well, he lost, and it's you have no right as a fan to get pissed because you're not in there.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, you have no right as a fan. With that being said, I was pissed.
Yeah.
Because it seems, and I know it's not, from the outside, it seems like such a simple adjustment that he has to make, and I know it's not.
Yeah.
But it appears that way. There's just if you watch you want to do spoiler alert?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Yeah, so he got dropped every time with a right hook.
With the same punch. Because he kept dropping his hand.
It was either a combination of that or TJ doing something to make him drop it a little lower, or his foot position. I need to watch it again.
Well, TJ in the post I watched the.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
You did.
and he said that they knew that what he would do he would throw a right hand and then a left hook, but when he would throw the right hand, he would put his left hand in his pocket,
And that's what happens when people throw that hook.
So when he threw the right hand, he immediately knew that left side was open.
Yeah, and that's
I guess the right side.
That's really tough not to do in MMA because in boxing you're so tight. It's easier to keep that tight frame up. So when you throw the 2, when you throw the 3, that hook, which his is a left hook, yeah. So he hits the 2, which is the right cross, and the 3, which is the hook. With boxing, you're in so tight a lot of times with those, you can keep that hand up by your head and it shoots from your head. In MMA, you're reaching a little bit more, and so people will have a tendency to bring it down to the hip, and right there, man,
that's exactly.
you're open.
Yeah.
And it's the risk. The more reward of the punch, the riskier the punch becomes. Jab is a safe technique. You roll your shoulder, you're behind your frame. It's a very safe technique, but you don't typically get a lot of return out of it unless it's a cumulative.
Yeah.
The cross, a little bit more, a little riskier. The hook, a lot of benefit, a lot of fucking risk. And that's just what you see there.
Yeah. One thing we were talking about last night is when we're watching, obviously.
Thanks for the invite, by the way.
Yeah. I figured you were hanging out with Aaron.
Yeah.
He told me to invite you too, but I was like, no, screw him. But the jiu-jitsu and MMA that we were talking about just seems so shit sometimes. And I hate saying that because they're professional fighters and I am not. But you see them, they say they drop a guy and they charge in. Instead of passing the guy's guard, they immediately start throwing punches, which can be effective. Yeah. But it's like the other guy can close his guard, or if they were smart, they would just put their feet on the hips and kick him away.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know. I just wanted to...
It's different, too. Like, I feel like I can't give an opinion because don't train, like, jiu-jitsu for MMA or MMA at all. But it is... Yeah, I don't know. And it's tough, too, because there's not... I mean, you do see some of these guys, like Brian Ortega and, like, certain guys who are... like, really, really, really high level in traditional, like, gi jiu-jitsu. But you don't see a lot of the high-level guys go in MMA, and especially on the UFC. Like, there's a lot of guys. Gary Tonen's starting to do it. He just fought. But you don't see a lot of the high level guys go into that arena, so it's hard to, like, show what the level of jiu-jitsu could be, I guess, because they're so focused on jiu-jitsu side of things that they don't train. It's always like a takeaway, too. Like, once you're starting to... You're going to have to put intense focus into MMA, you're gonna lose some of that jiu-jitsu. Like,
there's only so many hours in a day that you can train.
Yeah.
There's only so many hours in a camp that you can train. And the selection process, have you guys ever played a game where you get to pick your character and you start with 20 points, and where you put those points, strength, it's stamina.
Yeah. That's how I think about jiu-jitsu all the time.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, it's exactly what it is. And then, worse than that, you try to make more hours, you get the law of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
So higher risk of injury, you're not getting as much benefit. Where's that threshold? It changes per person. It changes depending on what your diet is, how much weight you got to cut, your age. There's so many things that play a part into it. How do you continue to maintain that high level of jiu-jitsu and develop the striking skills it's going to take to even survive?
Yeah.
It's not an easy formula. If somebody can come up with an easy formula, they're going to be very famous.
You almost need, like in the Matrix, when they just like download this stuff into your brain.
Yeah. And it's tough because each fight,
which I'm sure is going to happen in the future at some point.
Not too long.
Yeah.
It'll be an injection probably of a bacteria that takes it to you and
over.
uploads it. Yeah. So
but
it's tough.
Yeah, like even in jiu-jitsu, like say you're not even training for mixed martial arts, like you're saying, I always thought about like in a video game where you choose your stamina, the other one goes down. Like
talent.
If I'm going to focus on guard passing, sometimes my guard will lose a little bit because I'm focused. But at the same time, sometimes training the guard passing can help your guard because you see things from a different perspective. But when you put intense focus on one skill set, like your other skill sets are either not going to go anywhere or get a little worse.
Yeah. Well, you see that all the time with wrestlers. Yeah, I was a high level, high pedigree wrestler that now has gotten maybe they're focusing on their striking, and then their wrestling it's not as sharp, and they're getting taken down by people you weren't expecting. And then it all comes down to when you are training those specialties, are you training in such a way that you're benefiting the most that you can out of that limited time. And I think that's where most people falter. Most people falter in that, okay, I'm dedicating 10 hours this week to my jiu-jitsu. Out of that 10 hours, what are they really gaining?
Because 10 hours of rolling,
we've talked about this
is
before.
way different than 10 hours of, all right, I'm focusing on this sweep, this pass, this whatever.
Yeah, it's called the Clarissa effect. Clarissa was a young lady who taught herself piano, and studied in depth. She was a young girl. She might have been 8 or 9, maybe 10. And she was studied in depth on how she was doing this. And it wasn't very long she was playing a day. It was little increments like we talked about before, but she was so meticulous about her mistakes. And she didn't try to play the whole song, but she was just, okay, I made a mistake. Let me correct. Let me play. It was deep practice. There's a book called The Talent Code where they talk about it. And, so if you're pressured by all these different aspects of your training, striking, wrestling, submissions, endurance, cutting the weight, or maybe gaining weight, getting stronger, you really have to get that to that Clarissa effect to make sure that limited amount of time is as beneficial as possible. And you have to have the motivation and a master coach to make that happen.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's a really tough formula. And that's why you see so much inconsistency there, because not everybody's got it down.
I like what you said, deep practice.
Yeah, there's three
practice.
to excel at anything. To excel at anything, you need three basic things. Not basic, they're very complex actually. The first is desire. Now, I think in that actual book he calls it ignition. Some people call it motivation. Other people call it discipline. No matter what you say, what it is you have to have a desire. You've been drinking for 20 years. Your whole family wants you to quit. You're going to lose everything if you don't quit. But unless you want to quit, you're not going to quit. Yeah. And that's the exact example. On the flip side of that,
right.
You want to accomplish something. You have to be the one to. If that desire is not there, nothing means anything else. So the desire has to be there. And it's got to be maintained. How many of us have wanted something really bad? 2 days later, we're like, fuck it.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, so, I mean, that in and of itself, I said it was a basic. It's not a basic. It's very complex. So desire is number one. Number two is you have to have a master coach. That master coach might be a person. It might be a reference. It has to be something that allows you to correct your mistakes, because practice does not make perfect. Practicing perfectly makes perfect. So you need that correction. And that could come from yourself, a book, a YouTube, or a person.
A YouTube.
Yeah, a YouTuber. And then the third is deep practice, because you have to be able to practice it in such a way it becomes hardwired and it becomes an association. I mean, how many techniques have we learned over the years?
Dude.
I mean, Jesus.
And you
fucking
forget.
encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But how many do we remember?
Yeah.
And why do we remember those? I guarantee you remember those, not because you watched it when you were taking a shit and it was a really good shit. And you're like, oh, yeah, I remember that show because I was taking a dump at the time. And it just embedded in my brain. No, it was because you practiced it and you struggled when you practiced it. And typically you pulled it off at some point. And now it's hardwired. And now you can get your 10,000 reps to make it yours. So if you get those three things, man, yeah, you can do anything. Whether it's
What book is this from?
The Talent Code, you said?
well, the Talent Code is one book that has this, but this is a repeated theme. I mean, I like the Talent Codes because it's very simply written. The stories in it are pretty good. It's not. I just think it's a good book. It's the one I reference the most time. But actually, if you look, you will find this pattern just called something different.
Yeah.
For instance, I'm not going to get too much into the woods, but basically that's it. That's what it is. You will find the same pattern all over the place in different books, but they'll just give it different names.
I'm reading a book called Flow right now, and it's about, like, obviously, like, the flow
woman
aspect.
named Flo?
Yeah, a woman named Flo. It's about the menstrual cycle. But it has similar, like, concepts and, like, parallels, I guess, but it's more about finding the flow state in just everyday mundane life. But it obviously is relating to when you reach that flow state and things like whatever, art or whatever. But it kind of talks about the same thing. And the big thing that so far, I'm not done with it, but like all those three things you're talking about all kind of relate to, like, to reach this flow state, you need the perfect amount of challenge. Like, something can't be too challenging to where you don't want to do it, because if it's too challenging, I can never do this. It's not going to be fun. But on the flip side, it can't be at all challenging and be too easy.
That's what Faraz was talking about. I think it may have been that book, Flow. But like where if you get something too challenging, you get to anxiety level.
Yeah.
But
I didn't even think about that. But that's the same. So that must be that book.
There are 6 basic elements to feeling fulfilled. And again,
please tell them to me, because I know 0 of them.
So again, these are going to be named different.
I mean, you saw how many crackers I ate last night. That's the prime example.
Too, man. So, out of those 6, 2 of them, and again, people call it different things. Some people call it certainty, uncertainty. I really like Jordan Peterson. He calls it chaos, and order. And we won't get into the other 4. That's a whole. You can go off for like 2 hours on it, but just basically that chaos and order. The first step of that fulfillment is a balance. Like, I need to know that this microphone is real, right? I need to know that I actually have clothes on. These are all things are certainty, they're order. I need to know when I drive down the street that the guy is going to stay in his lane and not just come over to me. These are things we take for granted, but they give us a sense of stability. Mm-hmm. But for most people, now there are some people that need almost 100% order, and that's called a mental issue. Okay. It is. It's a personality disorder. But most of us have some type of balance between order and chaos.
Well, and it can be on the other side of the spectrum too. People who only
and we
need
know
chaos.
those people.
Yeah.
We know those people. And again, it's some type of disorder. Jiu-jitsu is just so amazing because for most of us, it gives the right balance of order and chaos. Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I've got some order. I know I'm going to go to class. I know there's going to be people there. We're going to have a good roll. I have some order. I got a good base on my mount. I have a solid arm bar. I got a little chaos now because I got now this brown belt I'm working with, and he's going to give me some chaos.
Yeah.
And I'm going to feel fulfilled from that because it's not too much. I'm not just going in there getting smashed. I'm starting to learn. And then you go up to the next belt, and the whole order, the order of, or the ratio of order to chaos is different now. And so as it fluctuates, it's going to meet everyone's different, relative same, but a little bit different on that spectrum without being on one end or the other, an outlier. So you can see how that in itself really, it really fulfills that first element of feeling fulfilled. And that, like I said, the 2 out of the 6. But people call it different things. Of course, I certainty, uncertainty isn't cool enough for me. I like order and chaos.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the same thing pretty much as the flow, right? I mean,
it's
anxiety. Like, what was the bottom? It was anxiety and.
I don't remember. I would have
probably calm or something.
Yeah.
But that flow is like the state of mushin.
Yeah.
That no mind state.
Yeah.
And if you've ever rolled or run, or the first time I ever experienced this, I was at the water fountain. I was in junior high, getting a water, and I don't remember the kid's name, redheaded kid, and he tried. You know how you get the water and kind of pushing each other. Well, it got a little heated, and he went to push with an arm, and I got blocked. And he pushed with the other arm, and I passed him. I arm dragged him. Boom. Yeah. And he pushed again. Bam. And I went, oh shit, this works. This works. I didn't even think about it. And when you roll in that state, that Mushin state,
you can't describe. It's amazing.
Fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's magic, is what it is. It seems like magic.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it is like the highest high that I can think of. Mm-hmm. But that translates to medicine. There's things that we do in medicine that are like that. You know, I love hearing that from nerds. Oh, I've never seen somebody put in a central line that fast. You're just like, fuck, yeah, I guess so. Didn't fuck this one up, you know? But it even happens with your kids when there's a situation where you normally lose your mind. What the fuck are you doing? But you don't. And you go in this state of, hey, buddy, come on over here. Let's talk about that for a minute. So there's all different ways of getting in that flow state. And goddamn, if you could live your life in that flow state, you're in complete control of your reactions.
It would be, so you've read the book of we can
no,
end it kind of here.
It's on my list.
You haven't? I have it.
If no, I have it. It's on my Kindle right now.
But he has a 3rd grade reading level, so it's going to take him a few months to finish it.
Who? Him?
No,
Dr.
you.
Joe? Me? Yeah. I've read it, bro.
Well then I'll take it.
The Book of Five Rings. It's awesome. It's super short.
About flow.
No,
Book of Five Rings I've read.
Oh, okay, that's what I was
talking about. I've read it because I read it the first time I read it. My mom used to go to these used bookstores all the time.
Yeah.
and she'd get these little romance novels, and that's probably where my love of reading came from, because that was like some of my best memories.
Yeah,
was that newsprint and her going around and her saying to me, because this is the one place I could get something. Go to the store. She'd say, "I'm sorry, honey, can't buy you a toy today." Okay, that's cool. But we go to the used bookstore. Oh fuck, dude, I could walk out with like 3. I could walk out with a comic book, a novel that I can't even read, but I like the cover, and maybe something else, right? But I saw Musashi's Book of Five Rings, and goddamn, the cover looked cool.
Yeah,
I read that motherfucker and did not understand one word.
Yeah, I read. I think I've read it twice, because like I understand. I mean, obviously, I was older than you were when you read it, probably, but I understood.
But same reading level.
Yeah, same reading level. But it's all. I mean, it's about sword fighting, which is not. I mean, no one has that, but it relates to everything.
But it's like jujitsu; it translates to so much,
to anything, any skill, really.
And they've made translated versions that I've read since then. Yeah. And then the best is to listen to Jocko.
Does he talk about it?
Oh,
I haven't heard that.
He talks about that book.
The Book of Five Rings, yeah.
I love Jocko's podcast.
Great breakdown.
I'm not always in the mood for it because it's so
intense.
It can be intense, but it's just more serious. You're not going to get a whole lot of laughs out of it. So for me, I have to be in the mood. But if I'm like, man, I want to learn something.
Oh yeah,
I'll throw on his podcast.
I have to watch it because I can't cry in front of my kids, you know. And so there's some stuff he has on there, dude. I get emotional listening to it.
Like the soldier stories
and
stuff.
God, yes. Especially, because I always wanted to serve in the military, and just that's not something that worked out for me for a number of different reasons.
Yeah. I was telling Justin, I've been on a hook where I've just been watching documentaries of boot camps, dude. And I've been obsessed with it. And I got online, typed in Air Force Reserves. Like, I started looking at it because, man, from Jocko, I feel like the military, and I hate the government. That's the problem. But I think the military is so beneficial for young men.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
If any of my kids said they were joining the military, I'd be incredibly proud, but I don't feel it's something that's necessary for them to do.
Yeah.
They have to have that in their heart. They have to feel it in their heart. I grew up thinking that military service wasn't an option. I grew up thinking that you had to do it. But then my father, the man that married my mom, I think now I think anybody that would see him would say he had Asperger's disease, if you know what that is.
Yeah.
It's a personality disorder. And he was very upfront. He was very matter of fact. He was a large, huge man, 6'2", all muscle, just a towering, bellowing, just terrifying dude. And but he was very matter of fact. And he's like, you can't join the military. He's like, you have flat feet. You've had surgery on your feet. They won't take you. And so I grew up this whole time thinking like, oh, I can't go into. He also said that you'll never be an athlete. You're too awkward. You have no talent.
Damn.
He wasn't playing around. But he would be at every football game. He'd go to every wrestling match. Actually, no. Occasionally, he used to go to. Yeah, he would be at the wrestling matches. And then like if I didn't do so well, he was very
honest.
He just
well,
you
weren't.
He was.
Yeah, no filter.
Today.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's how he was. So I didn't realize that I could go to a recruiter and lie about my surgery and not say anything, and they were so desperate for people they'd take them.
Yeah.
Years later, when
especially back then, I mean, what was it, like World War I?
it was actually a Spanish American War.
Oh, dang.
And he served in World War II, so I thought that was the thing to do. And then when I got out of medical school, I actually applied to the Navy. And they got my measurements wrong. They got my measurements right, and they said I was obese. And they said, but that's okay. We just do some measurements, and you're good to go because you're not fat. You're just a big guy.
Yeah.
So they do that. They get the measurements wrong. And then by the third time so he wrote him in wrong. And he said, well, for me to get him official, I have to come out and do it again. And my wife said, no fucking way. This isn't right. We're not doing this. And so, yeah, but I mean, if my kids were to say like, yeah, I think I want to do this, I wouldn't be an obstructionist to it.
What if one of your kids wanted to be a cheerleader or something?
Hey, fucking cheer as
it.
good as you can. Yeah, I don't give a shit. Yeah, as long as you just got to keep training. That's all. They don't have an option, and the option of jiu-jitsu is not an option because I've had this conversation with my wife. It's if our kids said, I don't want to go to school today, would you say no?
Yeah, well,
they got to go to school.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I'm kind of tired of English. I don't want to do it anymore. Nope, sorry, motherfucker. You got to go.
Yeah.
And so there's other things in life that are like that. And it's okay to say it's like that. I don't care if you're a world champion. I don't care if you win a medal. I don't even give a fuck if you compete again. But the thing is, you got to get out there. You got to have something that's going to make you struggle, because you're not struggling, dude.
Yeah.
They're not waking up in the morning wondering if there's any Pop-Tarts left or is there anything to eat. So where's their struggle going to come from? How are they going to learn how to deal with life? How are they going to be, I like to say, an interesting person? Because unless you struggle, man, where are you going to learn it? And Jackson says it all the time. He's like, oh, I kind of wish I had a tougher life. Yeah. Well, no, you don't. That's the first thing. You don't, because you don't want to go to school with knots in your stomach thinking you're going to get stabbed or shot.
Yeah.
You know, you want to make sure dinner's there at night. You want to make sure that you have money and that you're not going to be homeless. So where's that struggle going to come from? And that struggle is going to be school. It's going to be jiu-jitsu, and it's going to be people making fun of you. You've just decided to do cheerleading, but that's cool. You know, so that's why I just feel it's vital. It's vital for at least my kids.
Every kid.
Yeah.
That's what they, like Professor Reggie would say to parents if they're like, oh, well, he doesn't want to do it anymore. He said, it's not his choice. It's not this 5-year-old's choice if he wants to do it or not. You bring him,
right.
You know.
It's not, yeah.
You can't let kids quit things.
So let me ask you guys this. How do you feel? And of course, I'm asking a question so I can deliver an answer. But how do you guys feel? Up. So we say that about jiu-jitsu. We're passionate about jiu-jitsu. We're partial to jiu-jitsu. What if somebody made the argument that the child can get the same benefits from playing tennis?
So yeah, what? No, like they couldn't.
I'm playing.
But why?
Advocate. I'm playing devil's advocate. Yes, they can. they get competition. They're competing in front of people. Eyes are on them. They are nervous.
I think nothing can compare to like the humility and like challenge of the ego, like combat sport, like a one-on-one combat.
You agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I would just tell the parent a tennis racket's not going to try and strangle you. I mean, it's just a totally different experience for the person.
What's your answer?
Yeah, let's hear the doctor.
Let's hear the intelligent answer.
I bring the question up because my wife, who's 10 times more intelligent than I am, better instincts than I have, she's the complete package. And
she makes a good chili.
Dude, she's just amazing. She's amazing in every way that I can imagine. This is an argument that we have because she doesn't understand the struggles of a young man. Mm-hmm. And it's in a tree-hugging hippie society, that's probably not the right term to use. I still do believe in, like a man needs to defend his house, fight for his food, be the provider, you know what I mean, to stand up and be that person. I know that
Justin doesn't know what you mean, but I do.
No, the provider thing, like, yeah.
Yeah. And that provider may come in the form of taking care of the kids. It doesn't necessarily mean you're working.
Yeah, it could be cooking. It could even, on the flip side, be doing, like cooking or like providing food or
right. Providing emotional support.
Yeah,
but it's putting something else before him.
Yeah. Okay.
You are no longer first. Women tend to get this like very instinctively. They know. I don't know what it is. My wife would never put herself before her kids, but damn it, man, I see a lot of guys do it.
Yeah.
And so I think that in that type of way that I picture my own selfish way, I picture a young man growing up, the benefits of one-on-one conflict in a safe environment outweigh that don't have the threat there. So playing golf is awesome. Playing baseball is great. Football has a degree of that. But the struggle and the benefit that comes from that threat and neutralizing that one-on-one threat gives you so much confidence. It gives you the ability. It just has this thing where nothing in life is going to stand up to, because I've faced people. I might have lost, but I faced them. And I lost and I bounced back. Mm-hmm. It's different bouncing back from a tennis match.
It's easy, I guess. Easier.
It's a game.
Yeah.
It's a game. It's not your mortality.
Yeah.
Now, a 5-year-old kid rolling on a mat doesn't quite get that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you get into those teenage years, at least I would hope that that's what gives you. Now, we're talking out of our asses because there's never been a double-blind randomized study to prove this.
Yeah.
So it's nothing but, pontification on what can help develop a young man into a good leader. I don't know for sure, but it just makes sense to me.
No.
But Amy, because she's got such a good heart, she's like, boys don't need. She doesn't do it in that voice. She says, boys don't need to fight necessarily to gain that. And I'm like, and I tell you, yes, they do.
Yeah, it's
They
in our
do.
it's in our DNA.
And you know what? The 30-year-old who didn't do it is envious
Oh yeah.
of his buddy who did.
Yeah.
Not that that's important, but the envy is coming from a place that he doesn't have something that he cannot buy. He cannot buy that. He had to have experienced it. And that goes back to that thing. Hey, buddy, I know this isn't easy. I know this is hard. I know some days you hate me and you probably hate going, but you will be so appreciative of it.
Yeah.
It takes me back to Ronda Rousey saying that she thought her mom was crazy.
Yeah.
Waking her up in the morning, so glad that she did that. Now, I don't necessarily
You don't
like
have
that
them,
whole example.
You don't have them practicing arm bars on a vacuum cleaner. That's what her mom used to do.
Oh, is it? No,
Yeah.
no. I just wake him up at like 4:30 in the morning and we go downstairs.
Let's
and work
say,
out.
drink your raw eggs and we go. Let's drill.
I give him protein drinks. Like, this is awful.
All right. Well, I think we've probably done quite a bit. We'll end it
2
here.
hours.
I feel like we could talk. Definitely want to have you back. Thanks for coming.
Yeah,
and
man. Thanks for having me, man. It's been
spending your time with
totally
us.
cathartic and therapeutic for me.
When
I
you
appreciate
start
it.
your podcast, come on and
yeah, I'll let you. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
steal some of our fans, because we have so many of them.
Yeah. When I get that off the ground, yeah, that would be a really cool opportunity. I appreciate it. Give me a chance to tell people about it.
Absolutely.
Sweet. See you
All right,
guys.
thanks,
See ya.
guys.
Ugh.
Yeah.